Well, good evening and welcome to Charlton Live, sponsored by the British Institute of Kitchen, Bedroom and Bathroom Installation. This is the big match preview. My name is Louis Mendes. I hope you guys are well. On this week's show, we will, of course, be looking ahead to Saturday's trip up to the Kassam Stadium to take on Oxford United, amongst many other items of discussion. Joining us to have those chats. First up, Nathan Muller. How you doing, Nath?
Living the dream, mate. All good. Nearly Friday. Long weekend coming up ahead. So yeah, it's going to be hopefully a good result on Saturday. Some new signings. Yeah. And then, so no, it'd be good, mate. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Also joining us bottom of the screen is Tom Walling. How you doing, Tom? I'm afraid your matey boy there had a car crash this morning, didn't he?
Yeah, so it's been a tough day. But so I've been out. I'm all right. Nate's got me pumped for Saturday. I was disappointed that we were playing again so soon, but now he's got me up for it, which is good news. So
yeah, it's these weekly fixtures that really get to you, isn't it? It's
too much
football.
Too much.
Anyone who didn't see it, Johnny Williams was among a number of former Charlton players whose somehow a car got crashed into a wire. I think they're all fine. They are all fine. Otherwise, we wouldn't be joking about it. But yeah, that was a weird story earlier on today. So, as I said on this week's show, we will look ahead to the Oxford game. We will, of course, reference the fact that we've made a signing this week. Chem Campbell has joined on loan from Wolverhampton Wanderers for the season. So we're going to hear from Andy Scott on his arrival. Let us know what you've made of him coming in as well. Good evening to everyone who's joining us in the YouTube chat. I can see Andrew, Louis, Alan, Shiny Phil's in there. Jay's in there, Hayden's in there as well. Evening to Sam as well. Get your views in the live chat, or you can tweet us at Charlton Live, or you can email us studio@charltonlive.co.uk. Let us know what you make of Chem Campbell's arrival. Where else we still need players, of course. What changes you'd like to see for the game with Oxford on Saturday. Later on in the show, we're going to hear from Beth Roe, last season's Player of the Year for Charlton Athletic Women. They're starting the season at the Valley this Sunday. We're also going to hear from Simon from the Fence End podcast. He's going to tell us all about Liam Manning's Oxford side ahead of our trip to the Kassam on Saturday. So, Chem Campbell in on a season-long loan. Nathan from Wolves has made a handful of Premier League appearances. Probably more importantly for us was on loan with Wycombe. Second half of last season, got 3 goals in 17 appearances for them. But, you know, decent reviews, actually. I spoke to a journo who covered Wycombe yesterday, and he told me that he's predominantly left-sided, but it sounds like he can play across the front. Bags of ability, loves taking on a player, the sort of player that gets you off your seat. He scored 3, but the goals were well taken. So, we needed bodies, and we've got one.
Yep, I think it gives us a little bit of another dimension as well. I think be interesting to see how we shape up now, because I know a lot of conversations been going on whether he fits into a 3-5-2 or 5-3-2 or whatever you want to call it. But I'm still in the camp that a formation is just a number and you start that way. But you know, they're quite fluid now, formations these days. So be interested to see what he offers. He's obviously got, you know, naturally I'm looking at sort of Jez last year and think, you know, can he fill the void? That's big boots to fill, but he's a big lad, and like you say, he's come with rave reviews. I think if he starts on the left, I think it might give us an opportunity to play Corey on the right, let him beat his man, and like he did for Carnew's goal, let him have a go down there, because we know Corey coming out off that left-hand side can be a little bit inconsistent with chances and decision-making, but listen, he's still growing as a player. I just think it gives us another option. Can he play up top with May? Probably. But I don't think that'll probably... I'll be surprised if that's any more strikers don't come in, because I just think if he's naturally a winger, can play in a 10 or the right-hand side. I just, like I said at the beginning, mate, I just think it gives a lot of options. Still a long way to go for me until I think all of us are satisfied, but we know everyone's going to be working hard in the background to try and get stuff done.
Right, well, let's have a listen to the technical director, Andy Scott, speaking about Chem's arrival yesterday.
Chem Campbell signed number 7 in the summer. How pleased are you to complete the deal?
Yeah, really pleased. He's a player that I've seen a lot recently, and going back a number of years when he played for Wolves. I remember seeing him against PSG in a game at Wolverhampton Wanderers, and really impressed with him. He's direct, he's got good physicality, ball carrying, attacking, threat that can assist and create and score goals. So another young, ambitious player who was really keen to come to us. Who's had a number of clubs after him, but after speaking to Dean and understanding where he was going to be playing and how he would be playing and how we played and the chances we'd create and the opportunities he'll get, he was very, very keen to come. So clearly, very happy to get him over the line.
You talked about his attributes. How do you see him fitting into the side?
Yeah, we've obviously created a number of chances in the first few games and scored a couple of goals, but have missed a number of chances. I think that, with Tyrese's injury, Corey's played 3 games in a week, the first time he's done that for a long time, so credit to him for that. But we need more numbers. It's not going to be the only signing we make, and we're trying very hard to bring some more players in. We're very aware that we need to strengthen the squad, so this is the first one that we've brought in. It gives us an added dimension. I think the fact that he's played League One football for Wycombe and did very well at the end of last year, everyone can see the type of player he is with his attributes. He's very direct. He's quick. He wants to take players on. He wants to create things. He wants to get in goal scoring areas. And we think they will complement the group really well. But he's a good person. He's come across very well. Mature for his age, understands where he wants to do, and I think he'll fit in with the group really well.
There we go. That's Andy Scott speaking about Chem Campbell's arrival without moving his mouth. For those of you watching on YouTube, it was supposed to be a video, but when I checked it was only audio. I was like, that's fine. We'll just go with that, and I'll use a picture. What we're saying, Tom, all hell let loose says is if he's a left winger, is he better than Kirk? I mean, the argument you could say is if he can put football boots on, he's better than Kirk for us at the moment because Charlie Kirk ain't playing and doesn't seem to be massively in the plans. So, we needed to strengthen in that area. That's clear. A lot of pressure on the young man because he comes into a side that, whilst it's created a lot of chances, we need to be finishing them off as well. So can he help bring that? Can he continue to help create chances and take some of that pressure off Corey?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. And that last point in particular, I think we've talked a lot about the fact that it appears we're very reliant on Corey at the moment. And whilst he's so far delivered on that pressure, it would be only natural for him to drop off at some point or have a rough game. And if we haven't got someone on the other side who can do something similar, then it's going to be very difficult for us to score goals. So I definitely think he can weigh in there where others haven't been able to. I think the way Kana has performed in recent weeks has been excellent, or in the last week has been excellent. But I don't think we should now suddenly start playing him week in, week out because he's still young. I think obviously Tyrese Campbell a bit injured at the moment, but we've seen glimpses of what he can do on that side as well. And ultimately, when Leeburn comes back, I think he's going to be a slightly different sort of player, so can add some attacking flair there as well. So I think it's a good option all round. The fact that he's versatile is really important. I think, as Ashley's just put in the chat there about defensive errors, I think the problem is, and something we've been speaking about, is we need to be building from the back. We need to sort out the defence because at the moment we're having to score at least 2 goals a game just to win. So I don't think we can be done. I don't think we can say, right, this is us sorted because we're going to win every game 3-2 or 4-3 now just because we've got another attacker. I think we need to sort out defensive shape. We need to sort out defensive concentration. We need to sort out letting balls bounce over our heads and making stupid mistakes. But it's certainly a positive step because I think if we'd have gone into Saturday's game without any more signings than we had, then I think people would have been concerned. But hopefully it just keeps that momentum going. If we can get a couple more next week before the window closes, then I think we'll be in that good shape we've spoken about to maybe push into that top half and up towards those top 6 places again, because I don't think it's time to panic yet, as angry as I was after the game on Saturday.
How do we make sure this one is more of a Jez Raksaki than a Niall John, Nathan? I guess the part you hope for is the fact that he has played League One games last season. Like I say, the Wycombe fans seem reasonably positive about him. So, whilst we don't know a great deal about him and young players can still be unpredictable at this stage in their development, he has had a little bit of League One time, which I hope is something that we can see as a positive.
Yeah, I think it comes twofold, to be honest, mate. I think you've got to have the right application from the player. And I think Jez sort of grew into that role. He sort of took the shackles off a little bit, and he was a bit of an unexpected quantity, Jez, wasn't he? So that first game against Plymouth, they didn't really know what to do with him, and then he continued that in that vein of form. So I think he's come here, you know, Chem's come here with a goal in mind. He's obviously come here because, you know, his attributes sort of suit the way that Dean wants to play, or, you know, he's going to get him to play. So yeah, a lot of it's going to be down to luck, but it's about, you know, him staying fit, learning, you know, men's football. Like you said, he's a little bit of a stint at Wycombe, so he sort of knows what he's going to come up against. So yeah, I just think it's about him expressing himself, and hopefully we can try and bed him in and get that chemistry along with the other team, because it's going to take time to settle. Maybe be interesting where he is going to play, if he can play anywhere along the front line. But yeah, I just think it's a bit of both, mate. Bit of consistency, but you're going to get some inconsistency with young players, as you say, mate. But I'm looking forward to it. It's another dimension. He's big as well as another 6 footer in the team. Not saying he's going to be our set piece pivot where he's going to be heading everything away, but, you know, height is quite big in this game. So I'm looking forward to it, mate, to be honest. Really, really looking forward to it, especially where Andy was saying he's a ball carrier. We've never really had many of them, really. I mean, you're Corey, and you had a couple of other players, but Pan now. But apart from that, you had Liam Miller those years ago, which seemed about 20 years ago. But I just like ball carriers. I think you can turn defence into attack really, really quickly. So I'm looking forward to him, mate.
Yeah, Shiny Phil saying we definitely need that threat down the other wing, like the Robinson-Newton combination we had in the Division 1 days. Imagine how badly we'd suffer if Corey Blackett-Taylor got injured. I think we should have Corey on one side and Chem on the other, and that could be the answer. I mean, is that how you see him playing? And again, it does come back to the question of formation and exactly how we will line up. But I guess if he is as versatile as he suggests, and I don't know, like, could he play wing back in a 3-5-2? We found that a problem with more attack-minded players, but it certainly sounds like a 4-3-3. There's a few roles he could fit into. So again, it'll be interesting to see exactly how Dean lines him up, Tom.
Yeah, and I think he's clearly tried with a lot of the signings and a lot of the players to get that versatility in them. It was very early days, but the 3-5-2, I'm still not. It's not that I don't think we can do it. It just hadn't convinced me. And I don't think it must have convinced Dean, because obviously he made that shift as well for the Bristol game, I think it was. And look, we still lost those next 2 games. I'm aware of that. But I thought in spells, we looked okay, and I thought our shape was better. I think with, as I say, with Kanu coming in and doing well, it's a shame for him to have to drop out suddenly and miss out. But I think we've got to be careful with him because he is young. And so, yeah, I think if we could play something like Corey and Campbell either side of May, then I think that's an option. As I say, then you've got the likes of Tyrese. You've still got Kanu. You've got Miles as well. I know those two are injured, but when they come back, and suddenly you look at that and you've got 6 or 7 players across that front line who probably can adapt into a few formations. I think the risk with the wing backs, although Corey in the Orient game in particular was getting forward, and even in that second half against Peterborough was doing it, the risk with the wing backs is how much they can get forward and how much defensively we leave ourselves exposed. But at the moment, we can't seem to defend no matter how many players are back there anyway. So it's, you know, we're just going to play 9 at the back because we need to try and stop shipping goals at the moment. So there's still plenty for Dean to think about. And as I say, I hope we're still going to be active in the window for the next week or so. But yeah, like people are saying in the chat, really, and once you've had a few days to get over the game, and that's the benefit of not having a Tuesday, those last 2 games we haven't been that bad in terms of the actual performance. We've thrown those games away, really. And I think if we can, this weekend in particular is going to be a tough one. Oxford obviously on a good run of 3 straight league wins, but you know, it's a long season, and I think I'm still going back to what I said those first couple of weeks. We've got the makings of a good squad here. We still need a couple more. We need some injuries back, but I think this is a good step in that direction as well. And like Nathan, I'm excited to see what he can offer us.
Harry's saying, great signing. Still need a couple more, and we'll be back hoping for promotion. Michael says, can't say I've heard much of Chem, but let's give the lad a chance. George saying, I hope we sign Darbo. If Dean wants to play wing backs, he could be huge. He played on, was it Monday, didn't he, for the 23s in that game at the Valley. I wasn't able to watch it. It was during working hours, but I don't know if you got a chance, Nate, for anything. But is he one you're interested in? Obviously, we spoke about the fact that on Sunday they did previously fail the medical with us, but he got through 45 minutes on Monday, so they're obviously keeping an eye on him. Richard Corley said the other day that he thinks if the deal is structured correctly, you'd assume that's for the club rather than the player, or for, you know, if they can come to an agreement, then he thinks that one would be a goer. Is that a player you think would improve us?
I think so. I think you can't grumble anyone who got to who was part of the team that got to Wembley in the Championship last year. I think he's a great little player.
Jimmy Traore won the Champions League. It doesn't work like that.
That is a very valid point, to be fair. I don't really know what to come back with for that.
No, I've no reason to say that as well.
Yeah, well, welcome to Charlton. Welcome, Charlton, mate. But no, to be fair, like I think it's a good, because I think if it actually might work in our favour a little bit. It might take him a bit of time to get up to speed, but I think it's a good player for Nathan to sort of learn from. It looks like Nathan's going to play quite a lot of games, and if there's times where he needs to be dipped in and out in terms of form, which can happen, or fitness, or, you know, he's just run a lot. Like he looked shattered the other day. So I think it was a good signing. I don't think we should get an established right back who's going to be expected to be playing every single week, because I think that blocks Nathan's pathway. So, and I think he's done well enough. It's not like he's been poor in his games and we need to take him out the firing line. I think he's thrived on it so far, Nathan, and he looked good all pre-season. So yeah, I think it'll be a wise decision, providing you know, the fitness issue is fine. Because I mean, there was rumblings about Cess and stuff, and I said, listen, Cess is a good player, but I think you need players that are quite durable in this league. Otherwise, you start getting injuries, which we seem to have every season. That's when you're sort of scratching around, and then putting square pegs in round holes. So I think it's if the medical is, you can play whatever, as long as it's managed and he's available more often than not. I think it's a good signing, because you're still allowing Nath to have his minutes.
Dan's saying I think Asimwe could do with a rest for Saturday. He's done well, but played a lot for an 18-year-old. Corey could be played on the right with Eden on the left. I mean, there has been a lot of chat about defensive errors in the YouTube comments there. Alan saying it's a defence that needs sorting out. Ashley, personal defensive errors have been the bane of us for 2 to 3 years now. Do you think we'll look to improve that area anymore, Tom? Because in terms of literal numbers, we've probably got quite a lot of centre halves. When you think about the fact we've got Mitchell and Deji Eleraway as backup as well to the likes of Jones, Hector, Terrell Thomas, and Ness. So in terms of numbers, I'm not convinced that they'd be looking at that area, because we've got a lot there. But in terms of quality, don't know if we're there yet. That's one that Andy and Dean will have to think long and hard about based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think if Deji and Mitchell were to go out on loan to somewhere, then I think yes, bring someone in. I think if that's not the plan, then I suspect the plan is for one of them or both of them to be the backups and to fill in as and when we have injuries and need to bring them in. I think you're right that the step up Ness made last year prior to his injury, obviously bringing Jones in, and with the likes of Thomas and Hector obviously re-signing for the club, I think they probably looked at that and went, there's some good experience there alongside some sort of younger talent. The problem has been, as you guys said on Sunday's show, and as we're all aware from recent weeks, the sort of errors that you just never would bet on. I mean, Michael Hector obviously made that joke in the week, gets his place. None of us could have predicted that he was going to let a ball just bounce over his head to a centre forward. Nathan has been exceptional, absolutely exceptional. And we get an attacking corner in the 87th minute of the game. And next thing we know, we've conceded because Nath's on his own at the back and has made a mistake. These things Dean can't account for, we can't account for as fans. These are just basic errors. So in terms of personal quality, I think that we haven't shown it, but I think the quality probably is there. I think we need to tighten up on set pieces. We need to be more disciplined, and we need to just think a bit more tactically, like not putting a youngster back on his own when he's absolutely knackered at the end of a game. But I think on the whole, probably we're okay in terms of people. Something just needs to click. Something needs to be sorted, because at the risk of sounding very stupid, I can't see us making mistakes like this for another 42 games. And if we do, then we don't deserve to be in this league anymore, and it's not going up. So yeah, look, I'd love us to bring in a nice, experienced centre back who's who's, I don't know, played in the Premier League and brings a host of experience, but then Michael Hector's played in the Premier League and look what he did last week. So even that doesn't guarantee success. So no, I think I'd like to see someone come in, maybe, and one of Elawere or Zach to go out on loan. Just again, just to that age thing and not to force them in. But I don't know. I don't know if it will happen because we need to bring in quality, like you say. It can't just be anybody.
Yeah, I mean, you spoke specifically about Hector, and obviously, I did say this on Sunday show. If you look back at some of the goals we conceded last season, I think that there's probably more that he was involved with than you realise. So, whereas when he came into the side, he felt like he brought a bit of a calming presence. He did sort of get Charltonized quite quickly, unfortunately, with the rest of them, and make some of these errors that you wouldn't expect a player like him to do so. So again, hopefully once he's got into his flow this season, we'll see a bit more from him. Right, Dan's saying on Chem Campbell, a player that we needed 100% going one-on-one and causing problems will be good for Alfie May as well. Hopefully, good evening to Jonathan West from the Charlton Upbeats. Hope you're well, mate. Thanks for joining us on the show. Andrew saying that Hector should be the leader at the back, bringing on the youngsters, but that hasn't been working so far. And Alan's concerned that we could be bottom Saturday, and hopefully we won't be. But yeah, we will have to be very careful against an Oxford side that have had a really good start to the season. I mean, Anthony said he feels that Kirk doesn't want to be at the club, full stop. I mean, obviously, we still need to get some bodies out, and if that is to help free up some wriggle room with the wages and stuff, Nathan, it's best if we can get them out. But I'd suggest it might not always be as easy as we'd want it to be, and that could hinder us a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we could have DJ on and Kirk here, and if they are the two that they're trying to ship out, the first thing you've got to have is someone who wants them instead. So you might have interest. So, for example, you could have, I don't know, Ackrit and Stanley, for example, who both want them. They'd love to take both of them. But if they can only contribute 10% of their wages, why are we going to want to agree a deal where we pay 90% of wages, which is taking up a budget which we want to be spending on anyone else? So I suppose there's a lot of wheeling and dealing going around to try and see if we can ship them out. But I think that's the problem that they're probably encountering, is if there's not enough interest or solid interest to take these guys on a perm or pay a lot of their salaries. I have no idea if that's the case, but if they're still here, there's got to be a reason why. I can't see. Well, Kirk didn't. We was chasing a game on Saturday, and Kirk stayed on the bench, who's an attacking player. DJ came on, and yeah. So like, really, you've got to have someone who wants them, and I just don't see the interest in them. I mean, Wimbledon took DJ last year; they didn't want him back. So I don't know if that's what's holding up the other stuff. I'm not worrying yet because we've still got another week. I think this one, well, the one that got Chem come out of nowhere. So I think it just proves there's a lot of time left and a lot of things that we don't know. A lot of people put out there that they know what's happening and we're signing this, that, and the other. But until it's all official, mate, we don't really know. For all we know, they could both leave tomorrow and we'll get Messi in on a free tomorrow. So, I know it's not happening. But yeah, I just think that we've got time and we just got to try and ship them out, because otherwise they're just sitting there. And you don't want a big squad, an unhappy squad, or a toxic squad. Not saying they're toxic, but you don't want them sitting there unhappy. You want them to go and do the best for their careers as well.
Right, still plenty more to come on Charlton Live this evening. We're going to hear from Simon from the Fence End pod about Oxford United. Of course, we're going to look ahead to the Oxford game. One thing I'd just be wary of in the chat, I might talk about, is I don't know if you saw there was an interview with Charlie Mevin in one of the papers today. I think it was the Telegraph. Just let us know what you made of that. He was speaking about trying to get the losses down to £1 to £2 million a year. Let us know how realistic you think that is. But we've got a special guest joining us now. On Sunday, Charlton Athletic Women are kicking off their season at the Valley, 3 p.m. Kickoff against Sheffield United. And joining us now live on Charlton Live is last year's Player of the Year for Charlton Athletic Women, Beth Roe. Good evening, Beth. How are you?
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm all good. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. So, season kicks off on Sunday. How prepared are we?
We've done a lot of work behind the scenes. We've got quite a lot of new players, so it's taken its time for us to gel together. But I mean, pre-season's about digging deep, pushing boundaries, and hopefully when it comes to the start of the season, we've laid the groundwork and we're ready to go.
Yeah, he said it's been a busy summer for the side, a fair bit of turnover. I mean, some big name players coming in. Kate Longhurst, who's won the WSL a couple of times, obviously been with West Ham as well as Liverpool. Freya Godfrey's come in from Arsenal on loan. Carla Humphreys played for Arsenal and Liverpool as well. So Karen's obviously had a work cut out rebuilding the squad. How are you feeling in terms of the sort of shape of the squad going into the next campaign?
I think most definitely, as you said, there's been players who have come in with a lot of experience, and I think that's something over the last few years we've probably lacked. We've had a very young squad to now having a few older players who can sort of lead us in that direction. So hopefully going in, we're just going to focus on ourselves. That's all we can do, and then we'll take it game by game. But those players have definitely come in and given us a boost and have taken us to the next step. And sort of kudos to Karen and the staff for identifying that and sort of going with it. So hopefully that's something like we're able to learn off and take going forward with us.
Yeah, and she's just signed a new 2-year deal as well, Karen Hills, to extend her stay with Charlton. Sheffield United on Sunday, 3:00 at the Valley. Obviously, you played at the Valley a few times last season, including one where you were the match winner against Southampton, if I remember rightly. How important would it be to see a nice big crowd down there?
Oh, most definitely. To have the fans behind us would be like incredible. I mean, you've seen at the World Cup the squads that they're getting. Obviously, by no means are we expecting anything like that, but to have a good 1,000 or so would be incredible, just to give us sort of the confidence and to have the backing and to make that sort of our home ground and our fortress. With any team that comes in, will intimidate them, and in a sense, that'll be our 12th man on the pitch. But no, Sheffield will be a good side. They've just gone full time, so we'll have our work cut out, but we'll do the behind scenes work and we'll go with our game plan and we'll stick with it.
Yeah, you mentioned the World Cup. I mean, it was obviously disappointment at the end, but it's so great to see a few former Charlton faces out there. Of course, Kate is with us just a couple of years ago. Was it fourth last season? Flirting with the top position for a little while up until the last couple of weeks. I mean, what is the target for this year? Because we've been full-time professional. This is our 3rd year now. I guess at some point we've got to start looking upwards to WSL and see if we can make that step up.
Most definitely. I think internally we have targets, but when it comes to it, you can't reach that end goal without taking it game by game. So as a squad, we've done a lot of work behind the scenes, sort of set our goals and our standards that we expect of ourselves. And we will just go into each game sort of taking that with us. So we know what we've got to do, but the standard in the championship is growing year upon year, and it's getting harder and harder. So we can only sort of do the best we can on the day. So yeah, it's a difficult sort of challenge with the teams around, but we're quietly confident in our ability, and hopefully you'll see that at the weekend.
Yeah, well, I know Jonathan Westwell because he's said hi to you, Beth, in the chat. He'll be there at the Valley on Sunday.
Yes.
Hopefully, as many Charlton fans as possible can get down there. Beth, thanks for joining us and all the best
Thank
for the
you.
upcoming campaign.
Cheers.
There
Thank
we
you.
go.
Take
That's
care.
Beth Roe from the Charlton Athletic women's side, looking ahead to Sunday's opening game against Sheffield United at the Valley. That's a 3:00 kickoff. Hopefully, you'll be able to get down there. Right, we're going to have a quick break on Charlton Live. When we come back, we will continue to look ahead to Saturday's trip up to Oxford. Thinking about a new kitchen or bathroom? Find professional, independent local installers with free home surveys, itemised quotes and protected payments, trading standards approved contracts, and workmanship warranties. The British Institute of Kitchen, Bedroom, Bathroom Installations accredits installers to ensure they are police checked, fully insured, and experienced. Take the risk out of home improvement. Visit bikbbi.org.uk.
Hello fellow addicts, I'm so excited to tell you all about our micropub, the River Ale House. The River Ale House is based in East Greenwich. It has 6 Pub of the Year awards, an ever-changing selection of amazing beer. It's owned by Charlton fans, walkable to the ground in just 20 minutes with buses that go direct to the Valley too. If your matchday routine includes a drink with your friends, you must join your fellow addicts in the River. See you soon.
Right, welcome back to Charlton Live. This is the big match preview. Massive thanks to Beth Roe from Charlton Women, who joined us just before the break there. Right, Saturday, we're heading up to Oxford United. Not a happy hunting ground for us, unfortunately. I was looking up earlier. We've literally never won a league game at the Kassam Stadium. We did win in the FA Cup there when Jan Kermorgant scored a free kick, which was obviously a great day. And I think that was his last Charlton goal, actually, as well. So it is hello turf for us Addicks fans. But we are facing a side who've had a particularly good start to the season. Joining us now from the Fence End pod to tell us all about Oxford United and Liam Manning's team is Simon. Good evening, Simon. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you guys?
Yeah, very good indeed. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a decent, other than the opening day defeat at Cambridge, it's been a pretty good start and probably exactly the response you wanted after a bit of a strange season last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a poor start to the season and getting knocked out of the League Cup as well, heavily beaten down at Bristol City. And I think we had a good pre-season, won the last pre-season game against QPR, and I think the two defeats right at the start of the season were perhaps just a bit of a wake-up call that we weren't the real deal, and it's really, the 3 games since then we've got better and better.
So, what I was just going to ask, really, because obviously now you've got Liam Manning in, it's quite a stark contrast in of when you had Carl Robinson there. So, I just wanted to see the difference in and how you've seen the difference of styles of play from Robbo to what obviously Liam Manning now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a massive change in that under Robinson we did like to play out from the back, but in terms of personality, yeah, chalk and cheese. You know, obviously you guys know about Carl Robinson. Liam Manning's a far more sort of studious, very much, you know, data driven and a much calmer influence, which I think was what we needed, certainly after the last season under Carl, where it all sort of fell apart a bit, really. But in terms of play, you know, both managers like to play out from the back, like to play. I can see we press a bit more and we're a bit more adventurous, I think, certainly from what I've seen so far under Manning, that we look to get forward a little bit more from those sort of midfield areas rather than playing the ball back and recycling it and really being patient. He's a bit more adventurous.
Obviously flirted with relegation towards the back end of last year, Simon. What are Oxford? What are your aims this year? Obviously, very early days in terms of performances, but going into the season and the summer you've had and the signings you've made, what do you think fans are kind of expecting from the team this year? Yeah,
I think, I mean, last season we were expecting a playoff push after the previous couple of years, 2 or 3 years where we'd been there or thereabouts. So, I mean, pretty much anything will be an improvement on last season. I think, yeah, based on the last sort of 3 games and away wins at Derby and Barnsley, who you would expect to be there or thereabouts as well, I think they're good results, very good results for us. You know, maybe playing them towards the end of the season when they've got going would have been tougher. So we've picked up 6 points there that maybe we wouldn't have expected to. And I think, yeah, we'd be expecting or hoping for a top 10 finish and maybe a push for the playoffs.
It's a question we've asked some of our other like opposition correspondents so far this season, Simon, and it's a question I feel a bit silly about now because judging by our results, we're playing Barcelona every week. But do you think that League One is a bit weaker this season? I mean, we've certainly contributed to that so far, but at the start of the season, we were like, yes, it's not the strongest league it's been this year. We should do well, and then we've unfortunately personified the fact it's not particularly strong.
Yeah, I mean, with you know the clubs that have gone up, Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday and Plymouth, you know, decent sized clubs. The clubs that have come down and the clubs that have come up from League Two aren't quite as big. You know, I'm trying to think. Yourselves, Reading, Portsmouth have had Premier League experience, and obviously there's a few of us that have had old Division 1 experience. But yeah, there's not the massive clubs down here at the moment. That said, I think League One is a weird division anyway, in that, you know, a well-run small club with a tight-knit group of players and a manager that can get the best out of them. You know, Wickham of a couple of years back or a few years back proved that you can get out of this division without having to spend huge amounts of money. Whereas the Championship, you know, yeah, getting out of the Championship is a much harder proposition.
Just one more from me, Simon. Sorry, mate. Obviously, I know it's only early days and he's played 4 games, but obviously James Beadle was at Charlton for a lot of his youth career. And obviously he's gone out on loan. He went to Brighton Brighton, and now he went on loan to Crewe, and he's obviously at you guys now. What have you made of James so far? Because he had a big promise when he was down here.
Yeah, I've been impressed with him. He's only a young lad, but he's made some decent saves, sort of low down. You know that whole thing about a big keeper, put it low down, he might struggle. No, his reactions are quick. He's comfortable with the ball at his feet. I think there'll be times when, as fans, we're going to be chewing our nails and say, "Get rid," because he's going to be. Manning does that weird thing with the goal kicks that rather than the goalie taking it and playing it out to the centre halves, it's the centre halves that play it to him. And once or twice we've looked like, oh my God, it's going to all come unstuck. But that's the way he wants to play, and Manning certainly looks like he's comfortable with the ball at his feet. He's made some good saves, and for a youngster, he looks confident, and he could well be, one for the future for, have a great career.
So just lastly then, Simon, before we let you go, what's the sort of squad looking like for Saturday? Who are the danger men? I noticed you've lost Marcus Brown to injury. You scored against us last season at our place, so that's one less thing for us to worry about.
Yeah, that was he pulled his hamstring, and that looks like he could be out for several months now, which is a real shame for him because he played under Manning in the West Ham Academy, and I think they had a good rapport, and he started the season really well. We brought in Greg Lee from Ipswich today, left back, so be interested to see whether he starts on Saturday. But no, I think there's one or two more additions would be good, but I think we're looking good. Mark Harris, who we brought in from Cardiff as a centre forward, who hadn't scored a lot of goals, looks like he's a natural finisher and could well be the danger man on Saturday.
Lovely stuff. That's Simon from the Fence Ed Pod. Thanks very much for joining us, and may the best team win on Saturday. Well, may we win on Saturday. yeah. Cheers. There we go. That's Simon joining us here on Charlton. I really enjoyed learning a bit more about the U's. We should look ahead to that game, Tom. Shiny Phil saying that over the last couple of seasons we often play well against the better teams and poorly against the weak opposition. Maybe Oxford is the sort of team we need to be playing about now. We had I remember doing the stats at one point, sort of midway through Dean's part of last season, where obviously the bottom half we were doing really badly against for some reason until near the end of the season. The top six we couldn't get anywhere near, but the teams between 7th and 12th we were really good against. So don't really know how we'll face up to an Oxford side who will be in a lot of confidence, and I think deep down, especially defensively, we almost certainly aren't.
I like that what you're saying there is out of 23 teams, we were basically all right against 5 or 6 of them. It says a lot about last season, doesn't it?
Smashed them, though, made mincemeat of them.
That's what matters. That's the real quiz. I don't know. I think the general point is right. Usually, we tend to raise our game against the bigger sides in this division, but this is a team where our record there is not good. So, it's not like when Plymouth came to the Valley and we smashed them, or, there's been other places where we go. Sunderland away, for example, for a few years, we just seem to get results there 2 or 3 times in a row. If we were going to Ipswich away this week off the back of, 5-0 and 6-0 or whatever the last 2 have been, I don't think we'd be saying that. So given our record at Oxford hasn't been good, it's like I said right at the start of the pod, this is going to be a tough game to go into, particularly off the back of 3 league defeats. But I think, we've brought somebody in, which is encouraging. We've had a whole week on the training ground, which I don't know how much of a difference it makes, but maybe it gives Dean a chance to tell some players to actually defend when they're supposed to defend. And maybe we can pull something out. As a lot of people have said in the comments, largely we've been not a bad side. We've made stupid mistakes and we've lost games. We've not been a bad side. And, I think on our day, we could go to Oxford and win, definitely, with this squad. It's just, at the moment, we don't seem to be having many of our days, do we? Because even the Orient game, we sort of huffed and puffed to that. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be really interesting about how we set up, whether it is 2 up front, whether it's 4-3-3, whether it's wing backs, whether Campbell comes straight in. So there's a lot for Dean to think about. I don't know if any of the injuries will be back as well. We'll have to wait for his presser tomorrow. But, yeah, I'm not going there completely pessimistic and assuming we'll lose, but I'm fully aware it's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, as Tom mentioned there, we don't have Dean's preview today. He normally does it on a Thursday, but he's doing it tomorrow this week. Paul's asked a good question, actually. It's a good discussion point. I have one question for the panel. Have they sorted out the leadership in this team? In your opinion, this was discussed end of last season. He said it doesn't seem to have been addressed. So, I mean, you know, kind of want to put last season behind me because I hated it so much, but as Paul's pointed out, there were times in that last season where, you know, the 6-0 at Ipswich, where you're watching players just not tracking back, and it was winding me up. The so-called recovery win at Milton Keynes, which was then followed up with being beaten at home to Morecambe. You know, there was such a lack of character in that side last season, which again I think was highlighted in our stats about coming from behind, where we haven't come from behind to win for a couple of years. You know, and the 4-4 draw with Ipswich felt like a bit of a one-off in terms of showing some proper character. Nave, I mean, we've obviously struggled already this season, so it's probably hard to say it's improved at this stage because we've conceded late goals, which again, what question does that ask you about leadership towards the end of games? What do you think about what Paul said there, Nate?
Yeah, I think it's a valid point. I think we do need a couple more leaders. You've got obviously Dobbo lead by experience. I don't know if Dobbo's going to be. So I see two different types of leadership. So Dobbo is your lead by example, see what he does, and that's how you commit yourself. And another leader, which I don't think we have too much in abundance, is if you're up against it or you need to get a game by a scruff of the neck and then someone dictates it and literally is shouting at players, not in a Jayden Stockley way where it was just a bit moany, but just literally trying to organise it on the pitch, you know, and helping Dean. And you've got some leaders on there. You know, Hector's vastly experienced. Yeah, I know he's made a couple of boo-boos, but recently, you know, Jones is, you know, an experienced player. You know, he's played in this league before. We've got players who's got a lot of experience, but do we have those players who have that bit of leadership, as you know, as Paul was saying, which is a good point. Especially as, you know, we were talking about centre halves earlier. You know, you've got Deji and Zach, who are good players and got a lot of promise. But if we get two injuries to say Heck and Jones, and you're looking at a back three of Thomas Ness and Deji or Zach, that's quite a youthful back line. So hopefully we just need that little bit of stability. You don't have to be a first star. I just think you need someone in and around that training ground to sort of keep people grounded and, you know, not get too high when we win and not get too low like we are at the moment. Don't get too low about it. You know, we're 4 games in. I know it's not been good, but let's keep a bit of perspective.
Ashley saying, I still think we need an absolute bully of a player, someone like a Harley Dean who's gone Reading. Just need an old head who's vocal, because I guess that does sort of come back to, especially if it's someone in the centre-back line, like someone who can actually organise the defence to help try and carve out those silly mistakes and make sure that people are concentrating. But like I say, if we're saying like maybe Heck with his experience could be the man to do that, but at the same time, unfortunately, he's been one of the ones who's made some of these mistakes. So it'd be hard for him, Tom, to lead from example at this sort of moment in time.
You think, like, even right at the back end of his career, when he was too slow, I think, and making mistakes and whatever, when Jason Pearce came back into the side or when he had to come on in a game, he did that. You know, he would grab us vital goals. He would do that stuff that Nate's saying about just keeping the back line in a line, keeping them in shape, talking to the young players. And maybe his legs couldn't get him through a full game anymore. Or maybe he would, you know, grab a player because he was a bit too slow or whatever. But he did all of that leadership stuff. And I know it's only been a year or two since he left, but I don't think we've properly replaced that. I think Ryan showed glimpses of it, but also showed glimpses of immaturity in his disciplinary. Hector, as Nate says, comes with that, you would expect. But I think on Not the Top 20 this week, they were talking about the fact that he just doesn't look like the same player that he was a few years ago. So I think I don't feel like we've replaced Jason Pearce really. And going beyond him, you look at someone obviously like Jacko, who did more of the Dobbo sort of leadership that Nath was talking about. Again, you just felt like there was a player there that could drag us through games. And I feel at the moment we just haven't really got that. Dobbo tries to do that now, but it feels like sometimes he's having to put fires out in so many places and he just can't be in all of them. So, yeah, we are missing that. And that goes back to what I was saying when we talked about the Campbell signing. I think it's a good bit of business from everything I read. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on him, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can offer. But I think ultimately, unless we get somebody like that at the back, that's going to be an issue. And maybe someone like Ash in goal. I think Ash has been brilliant, and as a shot stopper, he's excellent. But I don't know how vocal he is. He is still young. I sit behind the North Lower. I can't claim I hear him particularly in games, but I don't know. It's not like I would expect to hear him all the time, but I don't know how vocal a leader he is either. So does that mean Istick comes in? I don't know. I'm not necessarily suggesting that, but I'm just saying we've had experienced keepers in the past. We've had an experienced centre-back in the past, and we had an experienced centre midfielder going back to Jacko in the past. And that gave us the ability to just win games ugly and win games dirty. And I think we've just lost sight of that a little bit. So, I don't know. Pearce is obviously in the coaching staff. You'd imagine he's talking to these defenders about it. But, yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. And as I say, without sorting that out, it's going to be a struggle because no matter how good your strikers are, they're having to score 2 or 3 a game just to get the win.
Yeah, I see Dan in the chat saying we should get Piercy in to do some sessions with the defence. Obviously, he's there in the academy coaching role at the moment, so he's about, and he's probably got his head in his hands at some point watching some of those games. Ashley's remembering his battle with Mitrovic. So that must have been the 2-2 draw at Fulham. I was reminiscing about that game the other day. Because I do all my interviews on my phone, my iTunes is just full of interviews with old managers. So every now and then one pops up, and the one after a 2-2 draw at West Brom came up on my iTunes the other day. I was listening to my tunes, and all of a sudden it was Lee Bowyer like waxing lyrical about a really good point away at West Brom, and I was like, "Take me back to those days, please." That was a nice memory. Tom was asking the question whether we might try and swap the goalkeeper. I mean, one listener, Martin Eisted, might be up for that. Said late to the show, but Mr. Fred. But have you watched Mission to Burnley? A good watch, and makes you. I hope it's us one season soon. I haven't watched it. I've seen it advertised. I think it'll be an interesting watch. I did see a Burnley game at Millwall last season, and obviously they're a very good side. I'll ask the question, Nath. In terms of that back line, then. So again, we don't know exactly which way we're going to line up, but if there was to be a choice between Hess and Nectar, Hector and Ness, which way would you go on that? If there was to be a choice between Ash and Ashley Maynard-Brewer and Eisted. Just answer the question. Which way would you go?
Unbelievable, mate. We just made 2 brand new signings in about 3 minutes. Brilliant. Nectar and Hess. Do you know what?
Nectar's quite sweet, to be fair.
I know I'll probably go against the grain. I'd stick with Hector. But listen, I know he's made a couple of boo-boos, as I've said already. But I think we need to try and get a consistent back line together. I think we've chopped and changed a bit. I don't know how fit Jones is. I don't know how fit. Is Ness 100% fit? But he needs to settle on if it's a back 3 or if it's a back 2 in terms of centre halves. I just think we need to start settling down now and having a proper, consistent back line to build these relationships. So I think, 76 Rufus said, we need department heads who control their own sections. You need that. You need to build that chemistry with all different players. So I'd go with Jones and Hector personally if we're going to go for a back 4. Because he's made errors, and I think it must be so frustrating for Dean. And I know we've not been good. Losing 2 games at home in August is not great, but let's have it right. But at the same time, you can train all week, you start tactics, you can do everything. But if you give away silly errors and just do silly things, which happens, you can't really legislate for that, And I just think if we're going to just swap the defenders every time we lose a game, we could be swapping them around for quite a while unless things pick up.
Yeah, that's part of it, isn't it? We make so many, we can't really predict how we're going to line up on Saturday in terms of shape, so it does make the question of team news quite hard. I guess another part of it is, I think it was Anthony who said it higher up in the chat, if we're going to go the 4-3-3, then that does on paper leave Alfie a little bit isolated in the middle with the 2 wingers outside of him. It was Dan who said you've got to play May in a 2. He's too isolated on his own. So because of that, would you prefer the 3-5-2, Tom? But we've said it already. We've had issues with both formations, so it's a tough one. I don't want to see Alfie isolated in particular. I think you remember the game away at Peterborough. I can't remember what shape we played there. I think we played the 3 and therefore with 2 up top, but it was with Payne up top, and we saw when Alfie got isolated, he only touched the ball 13 times in that game. One of which was a shot that made the keeper work. He turned something into a chance. But we've got on paper one of the better strikers in League One. We got to get the best out of him.
Yeah, It's a really difficult one because the more I'm thinking about my answer, I'm thinking all the way back to the Orient game. He's had chances in both sets of formations. Yes, he's been isolated, but he has created something in all of them. And for me, it almost goes back to the question you asked, Nath. I think we have to, and what people have been saying in the comments, we have to get the defence right, first of all. I don't know what the right defence is. I think, but I feel like that is key, and then you build from there. I also agree, by the way, that I don't want May isolated, but I feel like if you play him with two natural wide players, for example, when you've got Corey and Chem up there, then maybe, if the ball's out one side, the other can cut in and almost play alongside him, and you've got options. I think what worked well the last couple of games when he had Kanu up there is Kanu was able to flick balls on and able to hold the ball up, and there was someone close to him. I don't necessarily think he needs that if the players around him are working. You look at the goal against Orient, for example, came from Corey cutting down on the left and cutting the ball in. It was only because Dobbo was up there getting a nosebleed that May didn't score his first goal. So I feel like that formation does get him the ball if we play it right. I feel like the problem has been maybe just not clicking just yet. So I agree that if he's isolated, we're wasting him for sure. But if I look back at the games, actually, and you said it there with the Peterborough, I know he had a few touches, but on another day, that shot goes in and we go and draw the game, or maybe even better. Same with Orient. He could have had 2 goals there. And he's had chances. He obviously got his goal the other night. I know it's from the spot. So, yeah, I think the defence is still the most important thing. We have to get that right first. And if Dean thinks that's a 4 at the back, and that therefore means that we're playing May up top with 2 wide men, then so be it. Because I still feel like he's good enough to get a goal out of nothing. And I think, as I say, if those 2 wide players are playing correctly, then he shouldn't be kind of isolated anyway, because they should be in and around him to support him.
Tom mentioned Dan Carney's name there, which criminally we haven't spoken about enough really on this show. He was very good last week and spoke really well on Radio London last night as well. Check that out if you hadn't had a chance to listen to that. He's getting his A levels and his BTECs all lined up at the same time as scoring goals for Charlton, which is an incredible achievement really for someone obviously with his age and the pressure he'll be putting upon himself. It has been so impressive. But if we are to start 2 up top, I mean, he has to start, I think, based on where we are currently as a squad and his performances. I don't think he'll be the answer for an entire season, but he's certainly probably all of this season. He's grown. Like, he got a bit stockier, he said himself in his interview, but he's looked more like an all-round player. Not the finished article by any stretch of the imagination yet, but more of an all-round player than he was at any point last season, where I do think he struggled to impact games a little bit when he had his cameos.
Yeah, 100%, Murray. I think, and I'm glad you said about him bulking out, because he definitely looks like he's put on a bit. Not in a bad way, but I just think he's
in the way that footballers do, not in the way that you and I have.
Yeah, exactly. Not that way at all. So, but I just think, what? Last season he reminded me of the time when we had Carlin. Do you remember when Carlin? Was it Carlin when he first came on the scene? It was a bit rabbit in the headlight sort of thing. And it was a case of, right, I've scored goals in the under 21s or the 23s or whatever it was, and he made these straight runs. Always did it straight. And then he got into the first team, and he was doing these straight runs, and he'd never getting picked out. So for me, Daniel this year looks like his game intelligence has improved a lot, knowing when to drop, when to challenge, when to go into a channel. I mean, the header itself. I mean, I know he said that he probably wouldn't score it ever again if he tried, but that's an instinct, And I've been really impressed with him, and I'm like you said, I'm just really keen not to put too much on him. He's had a great start and he's been a great impact, and maybe he does deserve his chance on Saturday alongside me. But so impressive what he's done so far, and he sounds, he sounds really humble as well. Seems like a nice kid. So yeah, I'm really delighted for him, because he's come up through. He's been tucking left, right, and centre in any age group for the school. He got 400 goals in about 3 games or something, right? Bit of exaggeration, but I think I'm really happy for him, mate, and I hope he can stick around. But if it means that he gets regular time out on a loan, if we get enough players for cover, then I'll be happy with that as well, because I think he's definitely one for the future. But I think the jury's out there in terms of Saturday, but you can't begrudge him that start for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Paul says I agree. The change of keeper is a must. Andrew's talking about how Nicky Pope, you never stopped shouting at the defence, even though he was young. So he says if if maybe Ash could do that. And Dan saying, I think Carney was one of the players who came in much earlier after the summer break to try and get ready and be at his best for this year, and it's paid off. I'm trying to work out if there's really any other massive question marks in the side in terms of fitness and stuff. Kamara was a potential, wasn't he, when we spoke to Dean last week, that he might be back this week. So if he's ready, would he replace Karoy Anderson, I guess, if that's the case, if he can be risked from the start, Tom?
Maybe, yeah. I think Karoy's played well. That's the problem. So it's like you don't want to take him out just for the sake of it, and you don't want to put Pan in too early, given his injury record and his struggles to play 90 minutes. But I think it goes back to the protection of those youth players, and the problem we've had this year is we're just not able to protect them because we need them so much. So I think a lot of it, I don't know whether Dean will give anything away in his presser tomorrow, but a lot of it will just come down to whether players are fit, as you say. And if not, it goes back to Nate's point earlier, and I think I said it the last show I was on as well. I like the consistency. I feel like that's an important thing. And so you don't change it unless you really have to, or if somebody obviously has just had a bit of a nightmare. But yeah, I can't really see too many other changes. When you looked at that bench on Saturday, there wasn't a lot of changes you could make in game. So I can't imagine Dean's looking at it now and thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to bring so and so in. You know, we've referenced Kirk already, Payne, players like that.
That start he's been waiting for.
Yeah, based on that cameo last Saturday, he's not exactly earned it either, has he? So I just don't think there's a lot there at the moment, sadly, for Dean. And until we get some players back, he's having to pick from a very small pool. And hopefully, as we've all said, if we can get some of those players out and we can find a club for them, we might be able to bring a few in ahead of next week's game at Fleetwood. Because, yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game either way. And I just don't think he's got a lot really to work with in terms of switching for Saturday.
Yeah, Paul's saying it was a great interview with Carney, very mature. Of course, he and Alfie's efforts will be for nothing until we sort out the defence. I think some of our central defenders lack mobility. And Shiny Phil saying, I love Carney. When Dobbo missed his head at the end of Saturday's game against Port Vale, it was Carney who picked him up. He's good up front and he's good for the team. Yeah, because we had Dan and Zach Mitchell on the Player of the Year doing a podcast last year. And I remember thinking both of them very mature, sort of the way they speak, which is a good sign because, you know, we all know about the no dickheads rule and all that. We need characters as well as quality, and those two, obviously young as they are, seem to have both. I did say this before we heard from Beth, I think it was, that we'd talk a little bit about the interview with Charlie Mevin in the Telegraph. I mean, just the headline, Nath, the main thing for me was talking about trying to get the losses down to £1 to £2 million a year. And sort of trying to make profits on player sales. The losses are a lot higher than that currently, and it's slightly concerning because I feel like that's probably a plan that a lot of people have had and they've never actually delivered. You know, I think Thomas Sangard was talking about Project Break Even this time last year, and that didn't go very well. So, are you confident that Charlie's boys are going to be the ones to finally get this plan done?
I don't know, mate. I hope they do. Obviously,
is it not impossible? Is it not impossible at League One level?
Well, it's gonna be tight because you've got twofold. You either increase your revenue, and if you're not doing very well, you're not going to have revenue. Well, you're not going to have a lot of it, and you don't want to cut the cost too much because then you're going to be uncompetitive. So they sort of work mutually together. So. I don't know too much of the details in terms of the finances of where we are and where they want to go to. They would have had to have some sort of forecast in place or a business plan for them to take over to see if it was viable to take us over. So he obviously thinks, that it's doable. I hope that it's doable because it means the club's more sustainable. But yeah, I mean, it will come down to player trading, and you'll probably have a lot of players on contracts that are quite lucrative for this level, I would imagine. Not to the extreme of other teams in this division by any stretch, but yeah. So I mean, I've not read the article. I'll be honest with you, but yeah, I hope he can do it if it helps us as a club. But I think there's so many variables that we could probably be here for hours and hours to go into all the intricacies of it.
It'd be very, very tough. We'll put it that way. Right, we come to the end of Charlton Live, the big match preview. Massive thanks to Beth Roe from the women's team who joined us earlier on in the show, and Simon from the Fence End podcast, who was telling us all about Oxford United. Massive thanks as well to everyone who's joined us in the live chat on YouTube. Thank you for your live comments. A big thank you to everyone who's caught up on the podcast afterwards as well. We value all very much. Keeps the show going. Massive thank you to Nathan and to Tom as well. Always an absolute pleasure to speak to you, chaps.
Into them, Charlton.
Thank you very much. I'm Louis Mendes, and this has been Charlton Live, sponsored by the British Institute of Kitchen, Bedroom and Bathroom Installation. We'll be back on Sunday to look back at whatever happens up at Oxford. Hopefully, it will be 3 points for the Addicks. We'll see you later.